welcome to this week's edition of A Walk in My Shoes. My name is Rachel Perez and I'll be your host today. Today our special guest is Kari Shoemaker, who is an HR consultant. Hi Kari, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in my car. I have an appointment right after this, so I apologize for my background.
No, you're all good. Thank you so much for being here. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. So do you just want to give us a little summary about what you do?
Sure. I'm doing HR consulting now. I work with a CPA firm and a dentist office. Prior to that, I was in hospitality for 18 years. I worked mainly at Marriott hotels. So I've traveled all over. I have worked in all different cities. I'm sure we'll get more into that in a little bit. But so I was with Marriott for 18 years and worked in a hotel environment, which I loved. And then during COVID, kind of had to pivot and turn and change my direction. So now I'm doing my own thing, which I'm enjoying as well.
That's awesome. That's great. So what does your role slash position look like?
Sure. So with both companies, because I'm working with two now, I am in charge of all the human resources functions. So that's hiring people, firing people, um, creating new handbook, new policies, dealing with employee discipline, and working closely with the senior leadership in order to really organize our goals for each year and how we can get there, doing training and development. We love to promote within. So how can we get people promoted and into different jobs, or if they're not liking their job, kind of steering them in a different kind of path maybe within our organization.
That's awesome. That's great. So what does your week typically look like?
Yeah, it's changed a lot since COVID, I will say. I do a lot of talking to employees, talking to managers, kind of walking them through how to best talk to each other. So that's a lot of my role, is helping, right, our employees and our managers. So sometimes an employee's like, I just can't talk to my boss, or the boss says, I can't get through to this employee. So I kind of do side coaching and help coordinate that a little bit. And then sometimes if those conversations don't go well with, you know, solely, I get involved with that. I do a lot of interviewing throughout the week. There's a lot of open positions out there now. And so I've been doing that, which is a change from about 6 months ago when we weren't hiring,
Right. Oh yeah.
right? Now it's hire, hire, hire because we're busy again. So I've been doing a lot of that, a lot of coaching, a lot of creating new policies for both of my jobs. The world's been changing a lot in the past year. So kind of developing different policies with people working from home a lot more now, and how we can manage that and coming into the office. So it's changed a lot within a year. I will say that a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
So what does your team look like?
My team now, I am solely working by myself. When I did work with Marriott, I had a team of five. At one point, I had somebody solely focusing basically on payroll. I had an assistant who did a lot of benefit work, so dealing with everybody's insurance, right? Making sure they're signed up, or different programs that we had with benefits. And then I had an assistant that kind of took in more the day-to-day role. So she would, all the employees walking in, I lost my insurance card, I have a friend that wants to apply here, how do I get them in, all that different stuff, because HR used to be pretty busy when everybody was working in the office. Now with different people virtual, I do a lot of emails and team chats. People just shoot me really quick. So it is interesting how that's changed a bit. But my team now is just myself.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. So how did you get to where you are today? And were you promoted within any of the companies that you worked at?
Yes. So when I graduated college, I was like, I need to get out of here, right? The snow. I mean, I love Ohio, go Buckeyes.
Right.
So
Oh yeah.
I moved I moved to Florida on a whim because I'm
Oh
like, oh, it's cold
wow.
here. So I went to Florida, and that's how I got into hospitality. And at the time, I mean, I knew I wanted to be in HR, but I didn't know kind of what sector of it. So I just started applying, and I got a job with a hotel down there, which was crazy. We had 1,600 rooms, so I had over 800
Oh
employees.
wow.
And at the time, I started as a HR rep, which meant to connect with all those 800 employees. I pretty much was like on a golf cart all day, like waving, hey, how are
Oh
you today? I'm just checking in, that sort of thing. Do you have any questions? How's everything?
yeah.
So that's what I did. I did a lot of employee surveys for satisfaction because obviously down in Florida, the hospitality industry is very competitive. So I tried to stay on top of, are we paying our people enough? Do we offer the proper benefits? So I did a lot of that. And I did that for a few years. And then, I met my husband and all that. And so then I went to Chicago for 6 years. And I started at a hotel out by the airport in Chicago. You have to do your time out in the suburbs to get into the city. So I was there for a couple of years as an HR manager under an HR director. And then I got promoted and I went to go work in the city. I was at the Western River North, right on the water, right in downtown Chicago.
Oh wow.
It was a super fun experience. It was great. And then when I had my second baby, because we lived in the city and worked in the city, we decided to move back to the Columbus area where our family was. So I miss Chicago. I love Chicago. That's what I'll say to young people. Go out and live different places.
For
Ohio's great,
sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but it was fun to like live different places and then come back home.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow, you traveled a bit.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
with it, back to your question, I did get promoted each time I would go, and bigger hotels. So when I was the HR director and had two people under me, it was a smaller hotel, and then I worked my way up to bigger and bigger hotels.
Okay, that's
So
awesome. Wow.
mhm.
So is what you're doing right now what you would consider your dream job or no?
I yes, doing my HR consulting
Okay.
that I'm doing now. I love human resources. It was hard for me with having a family working basically HR, right? I worked in hospitality, which is 24/7,
Uh,
and being in
yeah.
HR, it was hard because pretty much you have different employees coming on for three different shifts, right? So basically my job was 24/7.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the nights and weekends, and I love hospitality, but that was one thing for me that during this whole COVID year, I kind of determined like with my three young kids, it's better for me to be doing my own thing, and I really 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 do enjoy that. I have more flexibility now where I can actually take my kids to school or
Oh,
be,
yeah.
at the events I need to be. My husband or my son plays travel baseball and soccer, so we're
Oh,
on
okay.
the go a lot. And
Yeah.
a lot of times my husband had to take him because I was working. So I do really like it, kind of being my own boss now that I can make my own hours and work the days and times I want to. So that has been great.
Wow, that's oh yeah, for sure. So what education do you have and is a degree necessary to go into your field of work?
So I would say I do have a bachelor's, obviously,
Okay.
in human resources, business management. I went to the business school. I thought I wanted to be an accountant at first, and then once I took accounting classes, and it was very analytical, and I'm more of a people person. So that's kind
Gotcha.
of how I fell into human resources. And then there's a certification that you can get in human resources just because now I have so much experience. Like I always wanted to do it earlier in my career, but now that I have, gosh, almost 20 years experience in HR,
Oh
um,
wow.
it's something, I think my experience speaks for itself now. But in my younger days, if I were to go back, I probably would have gotten my certification. So I will say that in my realm, you do need a degree. There are some recruiting positions that you can get within HR without having a degree, but as far as being like a human resources manager or director, you do need to have your degree.
Gotcha. Okay. That sounds pretty good. So where did you grow up, and were you ever involved in any extracurricular activities?
Yes, I grew up in Westerville, Ohio,
Okay.
and I loved it. It was great. I was involved. Did I danced for years,
Oh
probably over
wow.
10 years I was a dancer. And I
Wow.
really enjoyed that. I dabbled in like lacrosse and crew. I did crew for rowing for a little
Okay.
bit. And
Yeah.
then in college, I was in a sorority and played a ton of intramural sports. So it's always fun to be involved. I was
Wow.
also treasurer and secretary of my sorority. So it's
Okay.
kind of how I
That is
got kind of those
awesome.
managerial attributes that I then took forward in my career. So I would say it was good to have hands-on in college and be
Yeah,
involved,
that's awesome.
definitely.
So growing up, were you always a people person, or were you more introverted?
I was always a people person, like, oh,
Really?
Carrie, isn't paying attention in class because she's always talking to everybody. I mean, it was important for me to get good grades, but I was always the talker and, hey, let's plan and coordinate and what are we doing
Yeah,
this weekend, sort of thing.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. So what challenges have you faced while being in your career, and how did you overcome them?
Challenges. I face those daily.
Yeah.
Opportunities. I would say the hardest is getting understanding where a person's kind of coming from and so when a situation happens one way or another and kind of understanding their thought process on how they got there, and then oftentimes getting their manager to then understand where they're coming from and all of that. Another big challenge was it was really difficult last March when I had to lay off 150 people in one day. So
Oh,
that
wow.
one of my biggest challenges of my career. That was
Yeah.
really hard. Um,
Yikes.
yeah, we just kept calling in the different groups, and then I had to process all their payroll and vacation time and all of that. So I
Oh.
think I stayed up for 2 whole days. I never went to bed, like, because I had
Oh
a
my
certain timeline to
goodness.
get that all done. So my biggest career challenge was laying off that many people in one day.
I'm sure. Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
I know. And I had to
Yikes.
lay off my assistant, which I would have wished I could have kept so I didn't have to stay up those 2 whole days, but I
Yeah,
got it done.
that's awesome. So how did COVID affect your position?
Well, I was in the hospitality industry, and like I said, we laid everybody off. There was three of us. Nobody was traveling to at that point, right? So we had an empty hotel, so that means we don't need employees. So there was three of us, like working around the clock, basically doing every different position. And that's kind of at that point when I took my life and kind of said, I need to do my own thing, which was perfect timing for HR because little small businesses needed HR more than they ever knew. They
Right.
didn't know
Yeah.
how to navigate COVID and remote workers when they'd never worked remote before, or new policies for returning to the office, or with the dentist office having then patients. So it kind of like seamlessly, as soon as I decided that I was ready for a new role in my life, that these new positions kind of fell into my lap.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
kind of changed my whole course.
Oh, yeah. So has it ever been awkward for you to have to lay off or fire somebody?
Yeah, definitely, especially fire. Layoff, I mean, people understand. I mean, everybody kind of knew COVID was happening. I think that they thought, it's not going to be me or my position, but unfortunately, it was just what happened. When you, I always say, when you fire people, it should never be a surprise because you should have given them enough warning so that they know, right? So I try working with them on their behavior, go the verbal
Oh
warning,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
first warning, that it is always a surprise. Give me another chance, but it's that it's not looking people, but that's never good, right? But doing the right thing and coming to work on time and doing their job, right? So it turns out to be a morale
Yeah.
thing. So I've learned over the years that basically it, it seems bad, but sometimes people too. And I've talked to them a couple years later and they're like, thank you, because I was not in the right job for me. And I figured that out. And now I'm super happy where I am. So I always try to look at it that
Yeah,
way. Maybe I'm leading them to a different way.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good way of thinking. And yeah, I definitely like how you like giving warnings because yeah, it definitely should never be a surprise to be fired. That would be
Right.
pretty bad.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't be. Right. And I try to help them with, whether it's getting to work on time. Okay, set some more alarm. What can you do in the morning to make your morning easier to get there on time? So I try to work with them at first, and then we have to go the morning route. But sometimes it just isn't the right fit for somebody, like I said.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, absolutely. So what is some advice that you've had to repetitively give to people as an HR consultant?
um, just basically like leaving your issues at home when you come to work and
Okay.
focusing on work when you come to work and how to compartmentalize that because a lot of people have a lot of things going on in their lives and they bring it into the workplace and we're all servicing whether it be clients or patients or what have you, they're paying for a service or a product and because you've got stuff going on in your personal life doesn't that's not that person's fault, right? So when you come to
Right.
work, you kind of got to focus on your job or take the time off you need to figure out what you need to figure out and come to work ready and willing to work and be prepared.
That's so good. I love that. That's really good. Yeah, absolutely. So what skills do you think, in your opinion, are necessary for your position slash career?
I think communication is huge because there's
Okay.
all different ways that people communicate, right? And so something I explained to you, you might not get it the way I'm explaining it. So, kind of I like to do written and verbal and send article or listen to this podcast or whatever to get like the point I'm trying to make. I think that emotional intelligence is huge too, kind of being able to read like what how they're feeling that day and do I need to check in with them? Do I need to ask them to go take a 5-minute break to kind of reset their mind? But I think that's huge in order to be able to read people.
Okay.
Gosh, organization is huge. You've got to be able to,
Oh yeah.
I've got a lot of different moving parts. And so organizing my day because I'll start my day with a to-do list and I get phone calls, emails, this, that, and I totally get derailed, but I have to figure out what I need to get done that day because a lot of things in human resources are time sensitive. So making sure I'm staying organized to get all that done in a timely manner. I probably could go on, but I think those are the main ones.
Okay. For you, in your opinion, what do you think the hardest part of your job is?
I think having difficult conversations with people, because they try to avoid me and they know that you haven't been coming to work on time or you're not getting your work done or that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So, yeah, I think just
Yeah,
just kind of,
those are hard conversations.
yeah. So yeah, when you're talking to HR, they're not always fun conversations, but I try to stay connected with everybody. So it's not just, oh gosh, why is Kari want to talk to me, right? I must be
Oh,
in
right,
trouble
yeah.
or somebody's getting fired. So I try to stay connected so that it's not always, oh gosh, I have to talk to HR. It's going to be bad. Why am I in trouble?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good though. That's super good because I know HR people have come to me before, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I do? But they were just saying hi.
Yeah, I know. Like I
Yeah,
just wanted to check in and say hi.
I know. So what is one thing that you wish you learned while you were in school that you had to learn later on, if there is anything?
I think having those difficult conversations, I try to be positive and give people good feedback. And I think that took me years to get to learn how to do that. You can learn HR, but definitely that didn't come from a textbook. And then just like normal office experience. I remember my first job, they were like, hey, can you fax this over or scan it? And I was like, wait, what? I don't know how to fax. So just like those little office like skills at the beginning.
That's awesome. So is a lot of your job mostly just learning as you go?
A lot of it is you have to know a lot of the HR laws and knowing the policies and procedures of the company. Basic, you know, you have to have that down pat because once people interpret those differently too, you know, it can say one
Oh
thing and
yeah, right.
people interpret
Mhm.
it differently. So kind of bringing it back to no, the company seriously meant this, not right based on your own
Yeah.
interpretation. But it's like a text message or an email can get interpreted from different people different ways. So I think that too is important.
That's awesome. Are there a lot of HR laws to follow or remember? Or does
There
it
is.
depend
There's a
on a
lot of
company? Oh,
well, it's
okay.
that, but it's the basically like knowing FMLA, which is your Family Medical Leave, the Americans with Disability Act, and what falls under that, and
Oh,
all your
okay.
wage and hour laws. So basically, paying people and wage and hour laws and payroll and all that kind of stuff. So there is a lot of to know. I mean, I Google a lot on a daily basis. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have them
Oh,
all
really?
memorized. And then they update all the time too. So keeping up on that, right? So I know the laws pretty much, but especially with this COVID year, they've been changing a lot with the FMLA. You know, there's
Oh,
the
yeah.
family. So they've been changing a lot of that too. So just keeping up on it is important.
Okay. That's awesome. So, do you typically work Monday through Friday or does it vary?
Basically Monday through Friday now. When I was in hospitality, it was like I
Okay.
said, pretty much 24/7. But now
Yeah.
central office I work for and the CPA firm are basically Monday through Friday. Often, sometimes on the weekends, people have questions, benefit questions or whatnot, but those are easy.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. So we're gonna go ahead and get ready to wrap up. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for being
Oh
here.
yeah,
I definitely learned a lot. That's so
it's a
awesome.
pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
So I just have one more question. So what advice would you give to any youth that may be watching that want to go into this field or just in general? What do you have for them?
I would say have different jobs, and if you're in a job that you don't like, try out different things. Job shadow somebody if you know somebody that works in HR or somebody through your parents that you might say mom who works in HR and come shadow for a day because I oftentimes I get people in positions that have graduated with degrees and they're like this isn't my thing. So I would make sure that you job shadow, try to get whatever experience that you can before you get a degree and you're like, this is not my thing.
Right. Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's awesome.
so I would say
Awesome.
networking is huge with that, right? So making sure that you do keep up on networking because they do say that a lot of jobs come from who you know, right? It's not
Oh yeah.
so That is
Well,
kind of
so.
true. I guess that's my advice too, is make sure you network and, oh, hey, I met that person a while ago or what have you, and pull out their card or follow them on LinkedIn or something like that.
That's awesome. That's good advice. Well, thank you so much, Kari. I've loved
You're
getting the
welcome.
chance to meet you. And yeah, I
You
definitely
as
learned a lot.
well.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And make sure to join us next week for a new edition of A Walk in My Shoes.